Fadi, really appreciate you coming here today to talk about the consumer law. It's something a lot of people want to know about. They use it every day, but not many people actually know the details. But we have a very strong tradition here, and in order to kind of get the right vibe into the room, can you please touch my ball? It's down there.
Okay. So here goes.
Okay, do you see the ball? Oh, you see the
It's
vibe?
warm. It's warm.
Are you surprised? Okay, so that's the right
Very
vibe.
nice.
Thank
Okay,
you so much.
I've done the tradition.
So you're in consumer law, or what? Tell us a little bit how you actually got into it. How your own relationship and knowledge about consumer law.
Applied for a job with an organisation called the Australian Competition and Consumer Commission. I then, which was brilliant. I think it was brilliant. Almost the stroke of luck. And I found where I wanted to be, and I spent a significant amount of time with them. I think I spent 8 years.
Is the Australian consumer law any different to the way that it runs in Malaysia and Singapore and other places? I mean, give us the rundown. Why is the Australian consumer law something that I hear other countries look at with envy?
I mean, the basis is that you really should be relatively honest and open in your communication.
As a salesperson?
As a salesperson,
Well,
yes. Sorry to disappoint.
No, that sometimes stuffs up the sale.
And you have to be truthful, I think. There can't be you can't just tell half the story. You can't oversell something to such an extent that you're really telling a fib. And you should be honest in your dealings. And I think
so you're saying a good salesperson just knows where the border is between the fib and being on this side of the fence?
Yes, I think so. But, from my perspective, I think if you have a good product, it should stand on its own 2 feet. Yes, you can identify its good features and how in certain circumstances, and if you do it in the right way, you can sort of identify how your product is better than someone else's product, but you have to do it in a fulsome way, and I think that's a good thing. But when you start embellishing just that little bit too much, the comparison is not a fair comparison. It's not apples for apples, and you don't tell. You either tell a straight out something that's wrong, or you sort of tell a half truth, so to say.
Okay, so you're saying that the consumer law is looking out for wordsmiths. In the sense, I give you a sample.
Yep.
I have a really good watch. I say this is a great watch, or I say this is the best watch that was ever made.
Well,
Claim number 1 is possibly realistic. Claim number 2 is possibly a little bit over the top. Is that, am I getting it?
Yeah.
I'm interested a lot about the warranties and things like that, because I hear the consumer law is quite interesting in that element, whereby, and tell me if I'm correct, if I sell you a fridge and the average fridge in Australia lasts 8 to 10 years, but I give you only 1 year warranty on paper and the fridge breaks down at year 3, do I still have a warranty claim? Or because the manufacturer said 1 year, I have no rights?
Let's be clear. The warranty is something that the manufacturer provides voluntarily. As a manufacturer as a manufacturer of a fridge, or a reseller of an importer of a fridge, I don't have to give you any warranty. But in Australia, there's something called a guarantee as to acceptable quality. So the law would look at, in the circumstances, looked at as a whole, was it acceptable that this product only lasted for 3 years? I think there's a sort of, some consumers are quite smart and quite savvy. That doesn't mean that the fridge is bomb-proof and is meant to last 40 years, right? There are a variety of considerations that come into whether something is of acceptable quality. And note the words acceptable quality, not super quality or fantastic quality. So I think what the law is trying to do is trying to balance the rights of the manufacturer against the rights of the consumer. So what do you look at? How do you determine whether something has lasted for a reasonable amount of time, right? You look at, what did the manufacturer of the fridge actually say, right? Did they make any representation?
Best fridge ever.
well, if it's the best fridge ever and it breaks down after 3, and how much do they charge you?
$2,000.
How much, is that a lot for a fridge?
Yes.
You would have thought, the best fridge ever on the whole, if they're saying this is the best fridge ever and one of their marketing strategies is to say they're super reliable, and even though they didn't give you a warranty, and fridges typically, I'm no expert on fridges, but I would have thought a fridge should last maybe, or typically lasts. Let's not use this say should last. Typically lasts, say, up to 10, 5 years, 10 years.
8 to 10 years you get out of a fridge.
Oh, look, I don't know, but you would have thought it's a
the
product
ones I
that
had in the past, 8 to 10 years. So
you would
3
have
years
thought
is
it
very
last
quick.
a little bit more than 3 years. So on balance, is there, even though there's only strictly speaking a 1-year warranty, should it last more than, you might have a good argument that it should have lasted more than 3 years, given how much you paid for it and given that the manufacturer said this is the best fridge ever.
Okay. I must say, interviewing a lawyer is very hard to get a very straight answer out.
That's the nature of the beast, right? Like, you can't give, there's so many different permutations that happen. And, usually people said, but you said this, well, then if you want to be able to pin me and say, you said this, I've got to give you a matrix, I've got to say, if this happens, this happens, this happens, okay, tick. If that happens, no, there's a cross. So I think that's why lawyers are sort of, give you so many permutations.
Anyway, so the person says, no, sorry, 1-year warranty, you've had it in writing, that's what you bought, bad luck. What do I do next?
A lot of consumers or well-informed consumers say, no, you have the obligation to repair, replace, or refund me. Well, that obligation is not actually the manufacturer's obligation. It's the supplier's, or most of the time in Australia, the retailer's obligation. So if you go to a retailer,
Harvey Norman, Good Guys, any of those?
For example, yes. I'll leave it to you to name them. If you go to them, it's actually their obligation to refund, replace, repair, refund, replace. And those, the repair, you've given me the situation where it can't be repaired or within a reasonable time. Let's assume that. So it's usually replace or refund. Right. So that obligation is actually the obligation of the retailer, not the obligation of the manufacturer. But my intuition is that most people actually ring the manufacturer when they have a problem with the product rather than take it to the retailer. So that is a complication that needs to be worked out. Now, often what might happen is that the manufacturer and the retailer sort of work together and find you a resolution and are able to give you a refund or a replacement product.
Let's say we're talking about a solar product. Let's make it an inverter.
Sure.
And the inverter had a 5-year product warranty. And at 4 years and 3 months, it died. And they give me a fully brand new inverter out of the box, not refurbished, brand new ones. Does the 5-year product warranty start again, or do I just get the 7 months that I had left?
Guarantee as to acceptable quality starts again. Now, if the warranty, there is a guarantee as that the manufacturer will uphold their warranty as well. So it does start again, yes. But if the manufacturer somehow has changed the conditions of their warranty and no longer gives warranties, for example, there's no warranty, but the clock restarts on the acceptable quality.
Now, if I, on the other hand, give you a refurbished product, meaning I took one that was broken and then I just fix whatever is the little bits on site, but I give you kind of a second-hand one that is likely to still last the other 7-8 months I got left on the warranty, is in that case then the brand new warranty starting again, or am I just kind of have to do the remaining? Because the courses I've done, I was told that giving you a refurbished product was one way for the manufacturer to avoid going back into a cycle of another 5 years.
I'd have to check that, to be honest with you. It's been a while since I've looked at that specific issue.
Just listening to you here today, I just hope none of our viewers actually ever has a warranty claim, because it doesn't sound like it's a very straightforward circumstances.
So
it nearly means you have to have a brother-in-law or sister-in-law who is in the law department.
Look, I mean, if you're dealing with someone reliable and someone who values their reputation in the market,
Meaning you're supposed to buy a product from a good quality brand, is it?
well, I think it applies to solar panels and inverters and everything like in any other industry. If you buy a car, from a reputable car brand.
Okay, I got a company that pushes back. Do I have to hire a lawyer now, or can I ring the Department of Fair Trading, or what's the choice?
I think you can ring the Department of Fair Trading. So in New South Wales, it's New South Wales Fair Trading. If that doesn't work, I think you can lodge a formal complaint. And I think when I last looked at it, the regime may have changed. So do your own research, but they will try and mediate between the two of you. If that doesn't work and you want to take it further, you can go to the New South Wales Civil and Administrative Claims Tribunal. Again, it sounds awfully complex, but at the end of the day, New South Wales Fair Trading, in my experience, tries to make it a little bit simpler for consumers, and the NCAT, or New South Wales Civil and Administrative Tribunal, also tries to make it informal, so that you can there are online.
It's a straightforward,
it's a
streamlined
relatively
process that they do many times, so it's not as bad as what it sounds.
Yeah, it's not like you're going off to the a high stakes federal court case.
So it's easier than a divorce.
I knock on wood. I haven't had to go through that process, but yes, I would anticipate yes.
So if you got an issue, try to negotiate it, be reasonable. But then if it doesn't work out, there are fair trading departments and other options available to make a complaint and then have it followed up.
Yes, that's right.
Okay.
And I think the important thing is give the supplier or the manufacturer, this is my problem, this is how I would like you to resolve it. Look, I've experienced situations where someone has bought a microwave for $150, and 8 years later has said that it's broken down. For me personally, I'm not paid by manufacturers, nor am I a consumer advocate, but 8 years, you had a good run, right? Don't try and free ride anymore. And you get those situations, right? You get manufacturers trying to be tricky, and then savvy consumers trying to push the envelope a bit too much.
Okay. But let's say this microwave guy, he's come back, he wanted a brand new microwave after 8 years. You now say, hang on, mate, it was a 5-year warranty, it's over and done with. But what about if it was just 5 years and 3 days? Does he still potentially have something to go by if it's actually 3 days over the warranty?
I think if it's 3 days, you would have a reasonably strong case. I think that
they should still count in the count.
Yes, that's right. But again, you have.
It's interesting with lawyers.
Yeah,
I've never interviewed somebody that has given me as many. Then again.
With manufacturers, the important differentiation with suppliers and manufacturers is that they have to pay, theoretically under the law, they have to pay you damages for the loss that you've incurred. So if you've used a product for 5 years, what is your loss really? A product that is expected to last 5 years. So what am I gonna, let's say the acceptable life. In some weird way is calculated to be exactly 6 years. You've used it up for 5. They will pay you, and you've spent $150. They'll pay you 1/6 of.
So they don't have to give me.
That's the manufacturer, right? If you go direct, that's the strict legal obligation of the manufacturer. If you go to the retailer, the person who sold it to you, and you say, well, it didn't last, it wasn't reasonably durable, it didn't last, and there was, it didn't meet its requirements under the acceptable quality, the guarantee for acceptable quality. Well, then they would have to replace or refund. And there's a major problem with it, can't be fixed. They would have to replace it or refund you the money.
Okay, so I'm not 100% sure on this. So let's make this the microwave example. Let's say I actually expect it to last 6 years. It lasted 5 years. It was $150. Now I've only got a sixth of $150 because for 1 year I didn't get the use. Is that all I can claim, or can I actually say
Against the manufacturer.
Against the manufacturer?
But and that's strictly if you're, if the manufacturer comes down hard and says, no, I'm going to do it according to law, that's what you're entitled to.
That's all you get. But if you go to the people who actually sold it to you,
yes,
why can't they say the same thing and say, here you go with your $30?
Because the guarantee as to acceptable quality is a responsibility of the supplier.
Right.
Rather than a responsibility of the manufacturer.
Right. So the supplier is the one that sells it to you. The supplier is not the one who makes it.
Correct. It could be the one who makes it. For example,
if they sell it to you on the back of the factory floor. If they have
if they have a direct sales if they sell via their website. So
got it.
Yeah.
Wow. This is really...
It gets complicated relatively quickly.
You must make a lot of money out of consumer law.
Unfortunately, not
enough.
Not enough. Yeah. Yeah.
Jesus, I thought this was all straightforward.
Unfortunately, when you dig down deep, it's not. But I think the basics are relatively straightforward. Which is, I've purchased a product. Objectively, it should have lasted this long. And it didn't. Right. You as the supplier, you as the manufacturer have a responsibility to, in respect of that product.
Okay. I go in a different way now. Let's say I sell you a solar panel with 25-year warranty, but I charge you a very, very, very low price. Mm-hmm. And it dies after year 10. Mm-hmm. I gave you a warranty of 25, but I can argue, look, with that price, you couldn't have really expected 25, did you? I mean, you must have been dreaming.
So let's say, and it depends what the warranty is for, right? But let's say product replacement. No, you still have to replace it under the law. It's a legal requirement, because there is a guarantee as to express warranties. So if you give which is what you and me understand generally as a warranty, right? It means you have to uphold your warranty. So if I tell you, come on, how could you ever expect it to last for 25 years if you only paid $50 for it?
That's right.
But you know what? You made that, you as a business decided to make that.
Yeah, I only decided it so you would buy it.
Well, yeah, the repercussion is that you have to uphold it. So
when I better go bust then.
Well,
what happens then?
I mean, in the specific circumstance, that's not. If they haven't gone bust yet, the consumers, you as the consumer will say, "Well, that's not really my problem. You gave me a promise that you would do that, or a warranty that you would replace it." So I think so. I think they have to uphold it. With solar panels, it does get complicated. There's a significant cost of getting the old panels down and the new panels up. So I think it's important to, if you're looking at warranties, look at what it actually says. If it just says replacement of panels, then that's one thing. But if
the labor would not necessarily be included. So you have to get that panel shipped yourself and put it back up yourself?
It could be. Again, other aspects of consumer law come in. Are you telling a half-truth when you say a full product replacement or something like that? And then you go, oh, no, but it doesn't include labor. Are you then telling, what would the normal consumer, what would the regular Joe sort of think when when a solar manufacturer says, I give you a full product replacement warranty? Does that actually mean I only replace the panels, or does it mean I'm going to pay for the cost of getting the old panels off and putting the new panels on? I think the normal consumer would tend to think that the labor cost is included. I'm not sure. Look, I don't know. I haven't interviewed normal consumers. Difficult, but personally, I would have thought that would be included if I come to it afresh.
I'm sorry that I make it even more complicated now.
Sure, go ahead.
Okay.
That's what we thrive on.
I got a 300 watt panel system, 15 panels. and suddenly 3 of them die 5 years later. By now, the power class has gone to 400 watts. Nobody in the factory still has made 300 watts. I can't get 300 watts anymore.
Yep.
The problem is 400 watts won't be compatible with the 300 watts that I now got on the system, my last 3. What happens? Do I now can say, well, you've got to replace all of them, otherwise I'm not having a working system? Or can the manufacturer decide, well, I just pay you for those 3 panels and bad luck, you're going to have a smaller system?
If you go into the manufacturer's legal obligation, and it's not under a warranty, but under the general consumer law, I think. Oh, look.
I like it when I stump you.
Yeah. It's not an easy question. You'd have to look at it very carefully, but I think you would still need to. I mean, the loss that you've incurred is the whole system, right? You can't use it anymore. So there is arguably a case, and you have to look very closely, but arguably you may have a case. Did you hear what I said? You may have a case that the
everything
entire
is very
system
may here today.
The entire system be replaced.
Okay, I'll give you a technical aspect here.
People shouldn't go off running off.
No. Look, everything here will have to have the fine print.
Yeah.
Make your own expectations and your own inquiries, because as you can see, it's a very fluid law, and we're not running your case. So it really comes back to the specifics on that.
Yeah.
But in many cases, inverters have 2 strings. So let's say I make it 14 panels, 3 die.
Jesus, you want to make it any more complicated?
I can actually run still 7 panels on a string, so I still get half my output. But the other output, I possibly have to really replace it with different wattage panels. I would argue now, I want my 7 new panels. I don't want just 3, because 3 are useless. I think I got a case.
But if you have a set of 7 solar panels that are 400 watt, and then another set of 7 that are 300, the system should work fine. And so if we look at it from the perspective of the manufacturer, I've put you not back into let's put consumer law, the specifics of consumer law aside. I've put you back in a situation where you're actually better off. You're getting bigger, a higher level of output, a higher level of electricity production than you did before. So I think if you look at it from that perspective, I think it should be sufficient for them to replace the 7, not the 14.
Yeah. I wasn't being greedy. I didn't want the full 14, but I actually wanted just the 7, or maybe even just 6, because what's 7 times 300 is 2.1, and 6 times 400 is 2.4.
So you're actually
I'd be okay with, as long technically it works, I'd be still okay with 6.
So I think to try and get all the panels replaced is a bit
a stretch.
But I have not looked at the specifics of whether or not under the consumer law that you have a right to do that. But just looking at it from a principled perspective, I think if they replace and being a reasonable consumer and a reasonable manufacturer, put the law to one side, I think that's a good outcome for the consumer, and the manufacturer has done the right thing.
I had an inverter. The inverter died. I ring the manufacturer. They're happy to give me a new inverter. The problem is they're stuck somewhere overseas on a ship, and it'll take me 9 months to get that replacement inverter. I now don't get electricity for the whole 9 months while I'm waiting for that inverter. Do I have a right to claim for my lost electricity?
So not only have you, so you've lost electricity production, but you still have electricity to the house.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not sitting there with candles.
I don't know.
Come on. My system's not working. 9 months is not a reasonable time frame to replace my inverter.
So it's a major fault.
So I'm losing money because of
So you ask for a refund. And you get
I'm asking for some of the electricity that I lost because of your sitting on my panel.
It's the election.
On my inverter.
So it's at so the law says if there's a major fault, it's at the election of the consumer as to whether or not you get a refund or a replacement. Now, if you elect to get a replacement, a replacement is not available, they have to maybe source another replacement for you, or you have the opportunity to then seek some sort of, to claim that lost electricity from them. Remember though, under general law, you have an obligation to try and minimize or act reasonably to minimize your loss, right?
The loss is 100%. How can I
No,
minimize
it's like, okay, so you have the ability to go and purchase. So if how much is an inverter? How much does an inverter cost?
Good quality one, $1,500.
Okay, and how much would you have lost in electricity generation?
In 7-8 months, maybe 1,000.
Okay, so you can, and they are, so they would have to source another.
Maybe a different brand. Well, maybe actually not their own brand if it can't be delivered.
A different brand.
Okay.
But So
I mean, you have an argument, isn't it? They can't just say, "Oh, that's your bad luck." And
no, you have an argument. Yes.
Okay.
You ask a lot of hard questions.
That's why we pay you the big bucks.
Fair enough. Yeah.
Sorry, he's actually not getting paid, but
last time I do you a favor.
I'm an installer. I've now been called, and I deal with the particular panel manufacturers all the time. I've got a good relationship. They call me and say, "Look, in your neighborhood, 5 panels have failed. Please go out and change them." You go out and change them, and it took you half a day because they were all corroded in, and it took a while to grind them off, and you put the new panels on, and you sent them a bill for $500 because that's what it cost for 2 people the half a day. And the manufacturer comes back and says, "Oh, we have a policy. We only replace and pay for replacement panels $50.
Mm-hmm.
And you go, "Hang on, it was $500 worth of time that I spent on this thing. I'm $250 out of pocket. Do you have a point?" I mean, how do you negotiate with the manufacturer what is a fair payment for you going as a, let's call it a service agent, out to fix this stuff?
So, I mean, wouldn't you have an agreement with your, if you agree to getting paid $50 for a solar panel, to replace a solar panel, that's a commercial agreement between you and
So you're saying make sure you communicate with the manufacturer.
You're asking me about an installer and an installer getting paid, how much an installer
appropriate
gets paid.
Remuneration for the replacement of products on a warranty claim.
Yes.
Now, because maybe
let's assume this is on the assumption that you run your own shop.
That's right.
You have your own company. You're not an employee of the company. If they offer you $50 to do it and you agree to do it, well, if I offered to pay you $1 for a shirt and you're a retailer and you say okay, that is a commercial agreement, right? So
but maybe the installer assumed it was going to be fairly paid, so he should have really checked up early enough.
It's important for the installer to check, right?
Early up what he's getting paid.
There is something called unfair contracts regime, and it does apply to small businesses. But I think, if it was a standard contract and they just say this is our standard rate, it may be a breach of unfair contracts legislation. But I think if you have an input into the contract and it's not sort of a stock standard contract where they go, "This is it, sign it," or nothing else, I think, and that's often maybe the case. I think a lot of installers would sort of try and negotiate some terms, maybe not.
Basically, what I have learned so far talking to you is the consumer law is not a black and white thing. So even you're possibly the lawyer that I know that is the most straight and direct lawyer. When I ask you a question, I still don't really get a yes/no answer, do I? Is that how the law works, is it?
It's not straightforward the entire way. There are so many different permutations. The wording might say one very specific thing and it's very clear, but then the different situations come up where, does it actually work that way? Does it actually work that way in this situation? What's my possible resolution here? Okay. So it's not always clear, and that's not unique to consumer law. That happens a lot. You can't, predict every single circumstance.
Let's say we're going back into the end customer, and I got an inverter that has failed after 4 years. I had a 5-year product warranty, and I ring you up as the installer who has installed it for me. And I said, look, my inverter is not operating. What are my options?
So I think the supplier has the obligation. Let's assume the installer actually sold it to you.
Yes.
And wasn't just engaged to install it. Then I think they would have some sort of an obligation to either to make you good again, and then they would have some sort of a backup where they are sort of protected by the manufacturer. But if the manufacturer is wrong, the installer is sitting out there by themselves.
If the manufacturer is gone, the installer is by themselves, then the installer has to make a choice. Do they still support you, or do they go out of business if they have 1,000 of them out there?
Yeah, I mean, if it happens to 1,000 of them, I can imagine that being a significant financial hit to their business and their operation.
Right. And then if they go, I'm back with square one. So is there any advice? I mean, you bought solar yourself. What's your key advice then? Buy cheap?
I was lucky. I had you to advise me along the way. I think really don't just look at price. Price is very important, but look at the reputation of the manufacturer. Look at the reputation of the installer. Has the installer been around for a long time? There are websites out there. There are social media groups that are out there that sort of comment on this is good, this installer is good, this installer is no good, on previous people's experiences. I don't think it's a product that you can sort of go, oh yeah, I bought this thing, it's cost me $50, no problem, I throw it out. I think it's something that's going on your roof. There's going to be significant installation costs, significant removal costs, significant headaches. So you really, it's one of those products where you have to do your research.
I mean, significant headaches if it goes wrong.
Yes, that's right.
Because if it doesn't go wrong, it can actually financially deliver quite nicely.
Absolutely.
So how's your system going?
My system's going well. I have from memory, 5.36 kilowatt system on my roof. It's working. I had a tree, and so I got some optimizers on each of the. So I took your advice. I know thanks to you that if it's in a whole bunch of panels are in a string, and if only one panel is not getting the full sunlight, then you're losing a significant amount of energy output. So I ensured that I had some optimizers, or some brands call them micro inverters, or they're slightly different, I understand. And I'm very happy with the outcome. It's come out as expected. And actually, I've spoken to a few friends, and while they have a nominal output, say they might have a 6.6 kilowatt system, the figures I'm getting in my conditions are very similar to the figures they're getting for their what seems to be almost a 20% larger system. So I'm getting almost as much output as them.
I think they have a string system. You have a more optimized system, so you do have paid a little bit more at the first place. But I hear also now you've actually done two things since you bought the system. The first one is that you got 3 children, and they're all under 5. And the second one is that you got an EV. Now, both of them would put a bit of strain on the output of your system, and maybe you should have got a bigger system, just a 5.5.
Yes. The 5.36 kilowatt system was within reason, probably the largest system I could get my hands on at the time for what I thought was a reasonable price. I did buy what was still sort of the better bit of a mainstream system, Would I have bought a bigger system, like a high performance system looking back?
No, I mean more like
I'm
8
not
or
sure.
10 kilowatts now, because the three
Yeah,
children.
my roof wouldn't, I don't know how much out. I think they were 320s or 330s at the time. So they were pretty, I know the technology's come a long way now, and you're getting like 400 or 400 plus per panel now. At that time, I thought that was sort of a nice middle ground for what I was looking for, a capital outlay versus return. But of course, looking back, would you spend a little bit extra to? It's everybody's call. It's hard to make that decision, right?
No, you should say, listen, I was wrong. I should have got a bigger system, and I didn't plan 3 kids.
Well, I obviously didn't plan. Did I plan 3 kids? Not 3 kids. I had hoped to have some kids, but maybe not 3.
3 in how many years?
Roughly 4.5 years. So,
You've been busy.
Yes, very much so.
So how can you afford an electric car at the same time when you had 3 kids?
So I think the some of the incentives now are fantastic. I'm lucky enough to work with an employer that has that allows novated leasing. So I pay for my EV with pre-tax dollars. I do it through a lease, and that is really a significant saving. And I would encourage everyone that may have access to it to look into it, because it's really worth it, or that's been my experience. And the actual cost of running an EV is probably, depending on how many kilometers, it's lower. But depending on how many kilometers you do, it becomes even better than a normal petrol-powered car, ICE car. Yeah.
You know what I find so interesting? If I had another owner of an electric vehicle here in front of it, he would say, oh, look, I'm saving $2,000 on my EV compared to a petrol car. But you being the lawyer, you're actually not willing to put a number to it.
I don't know what the number is. I know that when we used to fill up our normal
petrol
car,
cars, $2.5 grand a year. $2.5 grand a year is your petrol on average consumption, driving 15 Ks or something like that. And your electricity, if you're getting it out of solar, or you're getting it free from your employer, where do you charge?
I charge mainly at home. Mainly at home.
So tell us about that experience.
It's a great experience. I would caution people for straight away going for a type 2 charger. Those are the specific sort of chargers that high powered AC chargers, depending on whether you have 3-phase or single phase at home, it depends. Look at your driving. I think most people drive around 15,000 Ks a year on average. Do you really need that expensive $1,500 charger or $2,000 charger, or is a normal socket or a 15 amp power point sufficient for your needs?
So that's all you got, is it? Just
I got a weather resistant, weatherproof, whatever you want to call it, outdoor 15 amp power point. That's what I got, because I worked out that if I charge my car for 10 hours, it will give me about 230, 250 Ks range. Now, how often do I drive that far? Almost never. So I think that's plenty for me. It charges my car overnight. I do it maybe once a week, and that works just fine for me. Most of the time, we drive locally in the suburb, and then maybe once a fortnight, once a month, we might go on not a road trip, but we might either drive down to Canberra or something. And then you've got the the charging networks available to you.
So you bought a Tesla, did you?
I did. I got a Model Y.
Okay, so have you used the Tesla chargers outside your home with the plug-in garage? I've used the Tesla superchargers, yes, and I've used the other network I have used and thought was great was the EV network as well. Is it easy? Are there people queuing up and you have to start knitting and waiting, or what's the story?
No, on the whole, I've been able to find. I'm quite lucky. We've got a Tesla supercharger with, I think, 8 or 10 bays very close to our home, so I do that. And I go there, and I mean there has been the odd occasion where I've had to wait for 5 minutes for a charger to free up, but on the whole, I'm not sitting there fretting that I won't have any place to charge my car.
Right. And are you showing
It's
off?
almost more. It's almost more convenient actually, because before you used to have to drive to the petrol station. Now I just sort of drive my car a little bit further up the driveway, and I just plug it in, and Bob's your uncle. And the way I do it is, at the moment I do it on. What do you call it?
Time of day.
Yes.
So that's the off-peak rate.
Yeah, I do it on an off-peak rate. Arguably, I could get it for free, or not really for free. I could lose. I get a feed-in tariff of 13 cents. I would only lose the 13 cents, but then, it might get cloudy, or, it might be no sun that day, and and if it's in the middle of the day, I'm paying the expensive rate. So I just go, you know what, I'm very happy with 22 cents for a kilowatt. If I'm filling up about 30 kilowatts, which is about half the capacity of my car, and will take me 200 kilometers. I haven't done the exact math on that, but I tell you what, it's
$4.40 for 200 Ks.
Yeah, so $4.40 versus
$2.20 versus $20.
Yeah, so it's significantly cheaper, maybe 5 times cheaper, 4 times cheaper. But if I charge it at home, then paying $2 approximately a liter of petrol. So I'm very happy with my purchase.
Are you sometimes putting your foot down and go all crazy with the electric car?
I really enjoy the instant torque that you have. So when you put your foot down, there's the power comes on straight away.
So all the babies in the back suddenly, their faces go like this, and they can't talk anymore.
I wish probably not right, but if it was up to me, would I have gotten the Model Y Performance, which really does that? Maybe, but I think for a family car, I don't need that kind of performance. I'm very happy. It's faster than my old car, so there's plenty of performance there. It's good fun, and I now find the driving is a bit different. You have to get used to it. But that's very quick. Within 5-10 minutes, I'd say I got used to the way this car drives versus my old car, and it's a lot of fun. It somehow feels more efficient. It feels more like you're a little bit more in control maybe versus an internal combustion engine car.
It might be just psychologically. Really.
It might, but I've gotten used to it. I like it. I'm happy. I'm surprised. I actually didn't sell my old car for a while because I was worried that I wouldn't like how it drives, or my wife wouldn't like how it drives.
Okay, so let's say if you then drive in city traffic, you put it on autopilot, you play cards with the wife, and the car just goes ahead, or have you ever used the autopilot?
So I think the full self-driving is a $10,000 extra or thereabouts, and it doesn't work as far as from the reviews I saw, it didn't work very well. So I'm like, no, I'm not spending an extra 10 grand for Tesla to probably use my data and develop the system even better. I don't know if they actually do that, but I thought, no, I'll just stick with it. So it's got a function where it'll keep you in the lane, and that works fantastically well. Every now and then you have to put your hand on the wheel, and it'll keep going. Otherwise, it'll start giving you signals. Hey, put your hand on the wheel. And obviously, it's not like with any car. It's not perfect. So keep your eyes on the road. Don't actually play cards with the wife.
All right. So you'd give it out of 10 buying an electric car, your experience?
9.5. 10. No, 10. A full 10. Yeah.
Wow.
It's been.
You're being a lawyer. Full 10 is hard to get out of a lawyer.
Oh, I'm a normal person too. I'm a human. Come on, don't totally dehumanize me. But it's been a very, very positive experience, and I've enjoyed it significantly. Look, I don't know what the long-term prospects are. After 8-10 years, if some people want to keep their car for that long, I don't know how the battery lasts, with the recharge cycles. But I've heard that it's actually better than, or the batteries are performing better than what people initially thought. At least with Teslas, I don't know with other cars.
So you raised a very good point, because let's say you love that car so much, you keep it in a nice shiny condition, your PowerPoint is keeping going, you're saving all the bucks. But now it's 10 years old, and you do notice that the charge is not holding as long when you go your trip to Canberra. At that point in time, you're going to have to make a tricky decision, because a new battery set for that car will be reasonable cost. I don't know what it will be, 8,000, 10,000, something like that. But are you willing to invest $10,000 into a 10-year-old car, or are you then likely to sell it and give somebody the headache that the battery isn't that good anymore?
I know what I'd do. I like my cars. I'd sell the car. I wouldn't wait 10 years. I'd be itching after 3 or 4. I want that fancy new model. And talking to the wife and going, hey, what do you think of this?
But hang on. Hang on. You bought the car for your environmental benefits, and then you kind of acting right again in the same throwaway society thinking that got us into the trouble in the first place.
Yeah, look, I think on every count now, it makes sense to buy an electric car. If they are a little bit more expensive, so if you are privileged enough to be able to afford the capital outlay, the initial capital outlay, I think over, so I would recommend it. But over a 5-year period, I think you make that money back. Or however long, 5 years, 6 years, I think you easily make the money back.
Are you able to lend that car to us here? We want to do a few experiments with electric cars and all that. We're looking actually for the right model. Are you?
Yeah, sure. In your dreams. No way.
Come on.
I don't think so. I don't know about everyone listening and watching, but I don't know if I trust you to do that. No way.
We Germans drive cars very well.
Yeah, I know. Yes, indeed. The Germans are coming out with some good electric vehicles, but they've got a bit of catching up to do, I think.
I actually think it's surprising that the Chinese brands are really pushing very hardly on there. And could this whole electric car actually make a flip of where the European dominance of cars and even the American dominance is now suddenly transferring into Asia?
So I think a lot of battery technology now, the later battery technology is coming out of China, and they're doing, the CATLs of this world. Fantastic battery. Some very exciting developments from a layperson's perspective. You've got lithium chemistries, and now you've got sodium ion batteries. Okay, not as energy dense, so they won't get you as far. But it's cheaper to make those batteries, and therefore a lot cheaper to make the cars. So it's very interesting stuff. And there's, a little bit further down the line, there might be some improvements in battery technologies, which might mean that you can drive your car for 1,000 kilometers before every charge, as opposed to 300-400 at the moment. So it's exciting stuff in this area, and some really interesting things, and a lot of it is coming out of China.
Right. So, and China was very smart in the renewables, because nowadays in Australia, 97% of the solar panels that we get into Australia have in some way got some Chinese component. Even if they come out of Korea, sometimes the cells are Chinese. Even if they're made in Australia, the components are actually coming a lot of times out of China, and they're just put together here. So my question is, that means the renewables, if they're becoming more and more important, our dependency on China actually grows with that as well.
I'm no expert on that, but yes, I think so. And you also got to look at the processing of lithium, the processing of rare earths. I think that the majority of that, or the lion's share of that, happens in China. I know that the lithium, hard rock lithium, comes from Australian mines, but it's then processed in China and then shipped off to Germany or the US to then go into cars. But yeah, this is something we got to look at.
So we're back in the situation again where Australia has the raw material, but sells it for 2 cents. Somebody then dusts it over, does all the beauty with it, and sells it back to us for $200.
I think for lithium, I don't know. For lithium, I think that's not the case. It's very expensive at the moment. And a lot of the miners are starting to look at going into the value chain, further down the value chain, and maybe look
up
at
the value chain.
Up the value chain, yes. So down the supply chain, up the value chain, and doing some of their own processing onshore. But I don't know how. I don't follow it too closely, but I understand. I think Mineral Resources were looking at that and doing that. They are an iron ore miner, and they have a lithium project, and they are looking at that option. But I don't know whether that's actually going to be physically located in Australia or in China. It doesn't resolve the problem if it's based in China. But again, do your own research, guys. Have a look and see whether that's something we do.
I won't get you too much more into the politics of this, but you have a Tesla right now. The Tesla Model S was sold quite well in Australia, but suddenly Tesla stopped to order that model and being able to order it in. Are the other manufacturers eventually going to catch up to Tesla and somebody one day buys the whole company, or are they so advanced that really nobody can catch them?
I think the valuation of Tesla is bigger than the following 2 or 3 or maybe all manufacturers, or at least it was last I heard. So I think other manufacturers buying Tesla is highly unlikely. Will they catch up to Tesla? I don't know, but I think Tesla's coming out with a lot of exciting stuff. Their engineering is quite good. Their cars are very simple. They take a stronger, they have a focus on simplicity, and that focus on simplicity takes out cost. And sometimes they take radars out to reduce cost. They say that it's for simplicity and for purity, not purity, but simplicity. And you have one system, and the computer needs to only process a certain amount of data rather than this huge amounts of data. But I think cost plays a role as well. And they're taking sensors out, parking sensors out, and relying only on cameras. So I think they're very, very cost centric, and they're very good with their engineering and their manufacturing. So I think they're going to play a very big role going forward. And the legacy manufacturers, let's call them that, have a lot of catching up to do, at least with respect to electricity. I think only BYD and Tesla.
In terms of electric cars,
in terms of electric cars, yes. I think the only two that are making a profit at the moment from the sale of electric cars are Tesla and BYD. BYD is a Chinese manufacturer of cars. I've never driven a BYD, but from what I can tell, they make really good cars.
Okay, wow. Are you in the Tesla's owners club the way you know so much about it?
No, I'm not, but I don't know. Maybe I should look into it.
After this podcast, you're going to get a free membership.
Oh, hopefully, yeah. Send it my way.
When we heard you explaining the Australian consumer law, I found it interesting that it wasn't always very black and white. There were actually a condition A, a condition B, and then what about ifs and all that.
Yeah.
For anybody watching this, in the most reasonable, shortest period, what are actually the rights I have under the Australian consumer law?
I think the key is really that when retailers or whoever is trying to sell you something, on the whole, they've got to be honest about it. They can't tell you half-truths. They can't outright lie about a product. So that's good. Otherwise, they're misleading.
Can they oversell? Can they actually state it's the best ever and it's maybe not? Is that already on the border?
That's already on the border, yes. You've got to have some objective reason for why you're calling it the best. I mean, if you're going to a fish and chips shop, your local fish and chips shop, and it says, the
best chips in Manly.
Best chips in Manly is different. If it says best chips in the universe, okay, everyone can sort of understand that's a bit of, a flamboyant statement, right? No one actually believes that they are the best chips in the universe. But if the fish and chips shop is in Manly and it says best chips in Manly, then I think that they should be held to account for that.
So if they get moldy, they're moldy on the side, you got an issue.
That's right, and they've essentially broken the law, right? So they just have to be honest about things. The other aspect of it for consumers generally is that you have these fantastic things that are called the consumer guarantees regime, and one of the most relevant ones is the guarantee as to acceptable quality, and you should make use of that right. And remember, if it's not necessarily the end of the story if your warranty has run out. If you've bought an expensive product, the warranty's run out, you bought an expensive product, they've marketed to you that it's going to be very durable, then you have a good case to sort of go, hey guys, no, that's not right. I would have expected this to last longer. But you've been given this right. right? So you've got to, the law has to balance the rights, your rights as a consumer versus the rights of a manufacturer, because otherwise, the manufacturer or retailer, otherwise they're going to go broke, right? And it won't work. So be reasonable in the way you approach things. If you've got a warranty for a product, say 3 years, and after 3.5 it breaks down, and you paid a fair amount of money for it, and it's a reputable product and expensive, then I think you should say, hey, there's this thing called, the Australian consumer law, and hey, there's this guarantee as to acceptable quality, and I think it's, you haven't met that guarantee. You haven't met that requirement in the law under the Australian consumer law. Could you please fix it? And if you can't fix it, can you please give me a refund or replace it?
Now, you have worked yourself in large companies.
Yep.
On the side of the manufacturer.
Yes.
Not talking about any particular manufacturer, but what is your role then as a lawyer in the manufacturer? Is your role to actually interpret the law fairly and educate the manufacturer, or is your role to try to find loopholes to get out of the manufacturer's warranty and push back as hard as you can against the customer? Because that's what makes financial sense. But then again,
Yes.
you also have to protect the manufacturer for not doing the wrong thing, because if they do the wrong thing and the ACCC goes after them, they can become very expensive.
Yes, and you also have, as a lawyer, you also have obligations to the court. So if it's in the, you can't just sort of try and push everything back.
You're saying as a lawyer, you actually have to follow the law.
You have some ethical obligations to follow the rules, right?
You should really.
So I mean, and you have to. It can get tricky, right? You're there working for a company that's looking to make a profit. You're not there because out of the goodness of their hearts. So you have to find that balance, right? So I would say if it's absolutely clear that they should give you a refund or give you a replacement, then as a lawyer, I would give that advice. Mind you, that the company doesn't necessarily need to follow my advice, but they'll get in even bigger trouble if they don't. If it gets discovered that, here's Marcus, and Fadi advised Marcus that, no,
you're on the hook for that one.
You're on the hook for that one. And Marcus ignores it, that makes it worse, right? So I think it's also not right to say, there are on the margins, I would say in Australia we're lucky, on the margins there are some manufacturers that like to push things and some retailers that like to push things, really far. But I think on the whole, if it's clear cut, a lot of reputable retailers or solar panel manufacturers or, whatever it may be, if they're reputable, they will usually sort of come to the party, so to say.
Okay. I mean, it makes sense to them too, because nobody wants these cases to drag on and pay their lawyer all the big bucks.
I've got better things to do than say advise on how to on a TV and a $2,000 TV. They'd spend more in my not necessarily fees, but in staff time, not just my time, but time of other employees at that company. I think if you don't get the response that you wanted, and you're confident that they're wrong and that you're right, go to the Department of Fair Trading. Go to the NCAT, for example, so the New South Wales Civil Administrative Tribunal. It costs you not too much money to go to the NCAT. So it's not like a proper court where you're spending thousands of dollars. You don't need a lawyer to represent you, and often they're quite good, the people that work there, and they genuinely want to assist you. These are the people at the Department of Fair Trading or at the various tribunals, and they are very knowledgeable about that. And if they don't think that you have a particularly good case, then I think you'll either get an unfavorable decision, or they'll let you know, hey, I don't think this, you're pushing things too far.
But have you ever had, in your own experience, a customer where you feel like that person is really milking the system?
Yes.
I mean, I think we talked about the microwave that lasted 5 years, and after 6 years they still came and it was $150 product. At that point in time, any reasonable person would say, look, you had a microwave for 5-6 years, it was a $150 product, that's fair enough.
I think it was more than that. It was 7 years or 8 years, and I don't know whether it was $150 or less.
Make
but
it even 300.
Let's say it was a cheap non-branded microwave that was really cheap, and you used it for 7 years. Come on, don't milk the system more than that.
But some people are very stubborn.
They are, and I think the system that is in place, they wouldn't get. They'd put the manufacturer or the retailer through a lot of headache trying to sort of go to the various tribunals. Sometimes they get lucky and they go, oh, it's not worth my headache. But I think sometimes.
What do you mean? You mean the manufacturer?
The manufacturer says,
just pay him off and
get rid of him. Yeah, it's usually him. Get rid of him, or alternatively get rid of them, or alternatively they'll say no. From a point of principle, we're not going to accept that. And I think if too many people start milking it too much, you will have manufacturers and retailers react in that way, where they say no, on principle, this is not right.
So is this a kind of a golden message for retired engineers who have a lot of time on their hand, is it?
Look, yes, sometimes it tends to be people that they have more time on their hands. Like if I have, even if the manufacturer is pushing a little bit and it's a cheap product, $50, would I really trouble myself to push it really that hard myself? It's happened to me, and I've just gone, you know what, I can't be bothered.
Okay. I do have one last scenario.
Sure.
Okay. When it comes to the whole solar and battery game,
yes.
All right, battery models, EV cars, everything is changing very, very quickly. And so let's say I bought a TV and it's 7 years old and it's actually out of the warranty, but what happens, I can't actually get any parts anymore, and I still want to repair the damn thing because I'm not the person who likes to throw away things quickly. What's the whole story about the right to repair?
So you have to hold spare parts for a reasonable period of time.
Which is what? What is reasonable?
Yeah, exactly. I don't know. No one. I'm unaware of any case that's run on reasonable. Someone correct me if that's the case. But I think it's very sort of airy-fairy a little bit. But let's try and put some boundaries around it. So if you sell a TV, the usual lifespan of a TV would be not acceptable quality, right? Lifespan, two different concepts, right? The lifespan of a TV, I don't know, is. What do you say?
7 years?
7 years. Usually after 7-8 years, people tend to replace their TVs. Some people will scoff at that and say, no, I had my TV for 20 years. Well, let's be, again,
that's
let's
a tube
reasonable.
TV that can't receive actually it's got to be
exactly,
digital now,
right.
yes. But
so
anyway,
that's
7 to 8 years, okay?
Let's say that, right? Let's not put it to a particular product. Let's just say 7 to 8 years. Then I think you should hold parts at least for that period of time.
But what about if the manufacturer says, oh, look, there was a certain thing in that part, make it the washing machine, and that little wheel down the bottom, that was actually not built that well, and we went through all our stock already and we've got no spares, and therefore I can't repair it. What's the story then? What's your right?
I think they have to compensate you for it.
Not just bad luck, she'll be right?
No, so say you've had in this case, washing machine for a certain period of time. You can't use it for, let's say it's meant to last for 10 years. I don't know if that's the right number, but let's say it lasts for 10 years. You've had 8 years of use. Here's compensation for 2 years of use.
So you only get the compensation for the 2 years you're missing out. You're not getting the whole value of the whole washing machine.
Someone will undoubtedly correct me if that's not the position.
Well, I would argue I want a whole new washing machine. That's unreasonable, isn't it?
If the washing machine has lasted has been durable in terms of acceptable quality, you can't argue that you want a new washing machine. It's not a major fault.
Okay, wow.
It gets complicated. It really does, and it's not simple, which, it comes back to do your homework, especially, for solar panels and roof installations, where there is a significant it's not easy to get those solar panels off the roof. I can't do it myself. I wouldn't suggest anyone do it themselves. I don't know if you're even allowed to do it yourself. I think you have to be an electrician to do it.
Correct.
Pick carefully, right? You're not spending hundreds of dollars. You're usually spending thousands of dollars. Do a little bit of homework.
Buy quality and buy once, not buy crap and buy twice.
That's my mantra. And, that's what I did. You gave me that advice, and I'm happy with my decision. I've had them up on our roof for 6-7 years, and they haven't missed a beat, knock on wood. Neither has the inverter. The inverter works fine. So I'm quite happy with my decision. I have had friends and family that have had bad experiences, and they just went with the cheapest quote. So like everything in life, you gotta weigh things up.
Fair enough.
What's important for you?
All right. Well, I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Well done. A lot of knowledge. I'm more confused than ever, but I got a bit more out of it. It basically means it's not black and white when it comes to warranties.
When it comes to the consumer law, yeah. And warranties can also be a little bit tricky. Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge.
Thanks.
Want more energy answered? Visit yourenergyanswers.com for quality energy products, tools and calculators, and find your quality local installers. Please support the channel by liking the video, hit that subscribe button, and ring the bell, and check out all our other videos. You're still here? I'll see you next time. Bye.